Secure's Price for Monday, June 15th, 2026. Presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Secure's alongside Blake Price. 4-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things as we hit the middle of June, Blake, and are through the Stanley Cup final, the NBA final, and the opening weekend of the World Cup alongside the BC Lions home opener. Wow, or season opener, I should say.
Everything is happening. Mm-hmm. It's not the first time we've said that this year. Have you noticed this trend? You're close to 50.
A little too close for some, yeah.
As soon as you hit 50, I've noticed this more.
Here we go.
Time speeds up like you wouldn't believe.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know the math. Every day is now a smaller portion of your life than it once was. But
and
weeks just blur.
Every day is now shorter in terms of being a pain-free day. Like something hurts or something's not right.
Also, I would prefer to be unconscious for most of the day as well.
Yesterday I was. Yeah. I got up. I watched some of the first match. We were going to go to the beach. I had breakfast.
A little cat nap.
I had a little cat nap. I wake up. She's like, thanks for that. We were going to go to the beach. I'm like, yeah, there'll be more beach days. Let's start. We're going to start Canucks here before jumping into all that happened.
All the trophies.
Yeah, exactly. Tons of trophies. Can the Canucks still trade Elias Pettersson to the Hurricanes? It's our daily poll question. You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the X and YouTube channels. This, of course, after the Carolina Hurricanes break through and win a Stanley Cup championship, minus number 40 of the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, they have long been rumored to be interested in Elias Pettersson. It is the mystery team everybody suspects, reportedly, that made that call to the Vancouver Canucks a couple of years ago before the trade deadline when Elias was marching towards free agency, still without an extension, and put an offer, or at least expressed a strong enough interest to Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, and the former Canucks management group that had them thinking and ultimately got Elias to the table for that rich 8-year extension at $11.6 million. But they have broken through, and they have not just broken through, Blake, but have you looked at how the Carolina Hurricanes set up for next season?
Yep.
There is not a single free agent of consequence on this team, unrestricted free agent, I should say, other than goaltender Freddie Anderson, whom, of course, they didn't need for the final 3 games after...
Perfect timing for that.
And they've got Kochetkov signed for next year alongside Brandon Bussey. Everybody else on this Hurricanes team is either under contract. Alexander Nikishin, the fine young Russian defenseman, is a restricted free agent. I mean, they have some bit parts who are UFA. But effectively, they can run it back, skater 1 through 18 next year.
The only
if they so choose.
The only burr in the saddle for the Carolina Hurricanes is the unused Jesperi Kotkaniemi and the almost $5 million cap hit that he still has for 4 more years. And he is now 25 years of age. You want to feel old again.
I can't believe he's only 25, though, given how long he is.
But my greater point is he's not probably developing any more than what he is right now. You could make the argument he just has not been given a chance in the last 2 years, and that's why but this was his worst year in the NHL. Long gone are the 18 goal seasons from yesteryear for Jesperi Kotkaniemi. And that was, you would think, part of the return in any Elias Pettersson trade. I can argue with myself on this till I'm blue in the face, Matt, because I think you could spin it any number of ways. And as you say, they are good to go. They can just run this thing back. They know they're good enough to win the Cup. They just did, and they did so in relatively easy fashion, it should be said. Or you could say, of all the groups in the NHL, to not sit on their laurels and say everything's good, we should just run it back, it would be these guys who are constantly looking to evolve, constantly looking for an edge, looking for value. So I can argue both ways, Matt. I mean, I think the answer is yes, they still probably could. I mean, we know it factually. You could, but is it likely? I mean, there's still a probability of it happening in my mind because I do think they are always trying to innovate.
Yeah. Carolina has $94 million roughly committed for next year. The salary cap is going up to 104. So theoretically, they have $10 million of cap space. Now, I imagine they'll want to hold some back because of the new rules for the trade deadline. Remember, you've now got a playoff salary cap, so it's not like you can just LTIR guys and go over and above the cap, as we saw a successful formula. Tampa, Vegas, a number of teams played that on out. Now, I'm interested if they're feeling that they're okay in goal with Bussy and Kochetkov and can just let Anderson go, whether they want to see an upgrade there. They probably need another defenseman, even with the re-signing of Nikishin, a little thinner there. But to talk about just, and we're going to spend a few minutes later in the program on just how well run and how well operated this Carolina franchise is, and to be able to achieve this championship with not bankrupting their future, I think is a big, big part of the storyline. The other thing is, Blake, like they remain chock-a-block with pretty good prospects on top of.
It's nauseating.
I mean, they got 3 or 4 forwards there. Bradley Nadeau, a one-time first-round pick who played in the BC Hockey League at one point, who had a terrific AHL season. They got a terrific AHL season out of another young forward prospect in their midst. Charlie Serrato, you saw with the U.S. Select Team at the Spengler Cup, who was one of the catalyst players at Penn State this past year. And they got a couple of Russian forward prospects as well that people think reasonably well of. So, yeah, I mean, I could see another young forward or two circling into their mix for next season. Perhaps not as flush on the back end with prospects. And look, they have very few draft picks this year. They did wind up trading out a number of draft picks for this coming draft. They have their first round pick, but without picks in the 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 7th round. So they only have 4 picks in this draft, but they have a full complement of picks next year, including 2 third-rounders, no 7th. They got 2 first-rounders in 2028, including the Dallas pick in the Rantanen Stankoven. And they're full up with picks beyond that, too. So they are dealing from a seat of strength. I am voting yes. I'm voting yes because of what you said. This is an innovative front office. This is a front office that is going to see value independent of, oh, we just lifted a cup, we don't need that guy. He would absolutely be an upgrade. Now, look, Jordan Staal had an extraordinary postseason and won the Conn Smythe, the oldest player to ever win the Conn Smythe, 37 years old. Incidentally, did you see the huddle with him and his 2 brothers, ice level, and the emotion there? That was one of the awesome scenes from the Cup celebration. But, you know, clearly Elias is a upgrade over Jankowski or Kotkaniemi. He further bolsters their center depth, would further allow any of their centers to play on the wing, or maybe he's the guy who plays on the wing.
And the UFA
they have the cap space.
The UFA classes are terrible.
Exactly.
You know, projected for going forward too. And Stahl and Martinook have 1 year left. So can they continue to be what they've been? Mm-hmm. And then you also just have to feather the nest for when they presumably retire in the case of Stahl. And you'd probably walk away from a 34-year-old, then 34-year-old Martinook as well. So
former Vancouver Giant, and he was a lot of fun as well in the post-game at ice level with the Sportsnet guys doing the interview last night. Good on Jordan. I can remember when Arizona Coyotes cut bait with him, I was like, you've got virtually nothing going on, Coyotes. That's a serviceable, good young winger. Why would you let that guy get away? This is what Eric Tulsky and the Carolina Hurricanes have done. They've been able to find value with players that other teams weren't finding value with. Taylor Hall, an extraordinary postseason. Some would have thought he was washed, right?
Oh, for sure.
Martinook, Jankowski, Eric Robinson, like who scoring all those big goals? Our old friend Jalen Chatfield, we'll get to him, former Vancouver Canuck. Shane Gostisbehere. Beyond next season, you mentioned Martinook and Stahl. It's Gostisbehere and Chatfield who would be UFAs for them. So, but even that, Blake, isn't too daunting. Like,
no.
It's not like they're staring down the barrel of like a massive, we've got to set money aside for this guy.
No,
Contract
all those contracts, incidentally, like maybe they renew Chatfield in a year's time, but the other guys you probably just say goodbye to. Like you don't need Martinook at 34 back. You don't need Gostisbehere at 34 back. We're talking a year from now. Like that, it's just perfectly timed to get that cash and invest it elsewhere.
Yeah, now Nikishin's going to cost them, and you do wonder whether they're going to go long term to try and bring down the AAV with Nikishin, and that will eat some of the $10 million in cap space. So if they sign that deal and they feel like, no, we're good, we're just going to run it back, then yeah, I could see them being very quiet in the offseason. But I just get the sense that Eric Tulsky and his group, that's not kind of how the way they
get ahead of it.
They're not a laurels rest on sort of FO. So I'm front office, just in case.
FO, yeah.
So I'm going to vote yes. You're voting no?
No, I'm voting yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We have unanimity.
Yeah.
Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Trophies lifted. Weekend turns into a coronation as both the NHL and the NBA Finals crown champions with parties across the continent. Think of all the cities where you could have had a humdinger party this past weekend. Because we had two champions raise the trophy on the visiting team's barn. You had, of course, the Hurricanes defeating the Golden Knights in 6 games, a 3-0 win in Game 6. Worst game of the series, but they don't care. Celebrations ignite in both Vegas and Raleigh. They're the Hurricanes players at a Vegas nightclub pumping the Stanley Cup. Can you imagine? You're just a random tourist in Las Vegas. You're out at the nightclub, and here come the NHL champions with one of the most famous trophies in global sport.
And truthfully,
like whatever that cover charge was, and I'm sure it was obscene, you got your money's worth.
If you have to win on the road anywhere, it would be Vegas is your top choice. Not only because it's Vegas, but you get to go out and celebrate, and chances are you're not crossing paths with Golden Knights fans because all those bars are predominantly filled with tourists, and they just want a good party. They don't care that you're not from the home team, the Vegas Golden Knights. So that worked out well for the Hurricanes. If you got to win on the road, then make it Las Vegas.
Then there's the Knicks who polish off the Spurs in 5 games, clinching it in San Antonio Saturday night.
I don't think San Antonio goes off like Vegas.
But they set Gotham off. New York can go off.
It did.
They set Gotham off for the first NBA title in 53 years. Take a look at the watch party in New York City and listen to the chorus here, Empire State of Mind.
That is awesome. So good. You know, we talked about it last week. For those that missed it, like the Knicks are New York's team. Every other sport splits the fan base, not necessarily in half, but there's a sizable chunk for the quote unquote other team. The Nets are so far down the list of other team, it almost doesn't need to be mentioned.
They're almost more other team than the Islanders are.
Oh, I think so.
Something.
I think they are, absolutely. So they're just the whole city buys in, and my goodness, what a party it was, and for the most part, well behaved. There's a couple school buses that probably have reached the scrapyard after they were ransacked, and there were 4 stabbings and a shooting reported by the NYPD, but I don't know how much that differs any other night on the weekend in New York.
Yeah. But there you go, 4 cities, Vegas, Raleigh, San Antonio, and New York. And that, of course, doesn't even include all the World Cup venues from this past weekend. The Scots and what they did to Boston, like I'm sure Boston has seen a drunk in its time, but my goodness, the Tartan Army turned it up to another level with their activities in that most historic of American cities. San Francisco and the Bay Area, they had themselves.
Did you see the
our city, of course, Houston, Dallas. Did you see Philadelphia and how packed the stadium was with all those Ecuadorian fans? And even down into Monterrey, Mexico, where the Swedes went off with a famous victory, 5-1. Tunisia, so mad they fired the manager today in the middle of the World Cup.
The intertwining of the World Cup was very funny. I saw a CNN reporter bump into French fans that were on the streets enjoying the Knicks celebration, and he realized, oh, you're here for the World Cup, and he said, yes, but this is really fun to watch. And then there was the kid on the Green Monster in the Scottish kit.
They caught the home run ball last night. Yeah, with a glove, too.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to guess that was an American with Scottish roots. Though.
Yes, maybe.
You're bringing a glove to the... How many Scots own baseball gloves?
Although it's an Irish town. Are there Scotsmen left?
I read something. I've been taking in a lot of the Scottish content and all of this. My mother's Glaswegian, so it hits. And... the number of references to how, the Irish are basically on our side here. The Irish, the Welsh, just anyone but England if you're from other parts of the UK. Anyways, just in terms of festivities, I think you can go a long way back before you find a weekend with the number of sports parties that were going on across North America.
I watched 0 minutes of the Canadian Open for the first time in my entire life. 0 minutes. I had shit to do. I was like gardening, but the TV was like, it's only so many minutes in the day.
I know there was no good fix because the World Cup is everywhere. I got home from golf on Saturday in the Seas game. I watched the BC Lions, but I couldn't help but think, I wonder how lost the CFL got this weekend when everything else that was happening around the world.
Well, and the downside of being in a league sport right now is people know I'll catch up.
Well, especially week 1. Yeah, it's week 2, I guess, in the CFL. Week 1 for the Lions. Yeah,
I got 20 weeks of football ahead. It's okay if I miss this one. Might be the mindset.
And the ties that bind between the Hurricanes and the Knicks as well. Teams not replete with superstar players, right?
Yep, we've talked about that too.
I mean, Jalen Brunson may get there now because he's a damn fine player, don't get me wrong, and he's now the centerpiece player on a championship team in New York City for the first time in more than a half decade.
Did you hear him shoot that down?
Interesting. Remember the Rangers won that 94 Cup. It was the first in 54, the first in 53 for the Knicks. I did not hear
Brunson
him.
was on the podium and said, a reporter built into the question, as a star, blah, 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 blah. And he said, first of all, I'm not a star.
Well, I mean, and that's fair because, like, Blake, usually the best player on a good Knicks team is all over the endorsements and the commercials, and that may be the case locally in the tri-state area. But I haven't seen Jalen Brunson get the sort of national shine, international shine, because it's such an international sport now, basketball, treatment from the NBA or from companies that want to push him forward. And it's a really surprising NBA championship formula because, I mean, we used to always say 2.5 stars in the NBA, right?
Right.
Not the case with this Knicks team, just 7 terrific basketball players who play with grit and determination and toughness, and they were just so awesome down the stretch of some of these games. They trailed the game on Saturday by 10 points late, and they come back.
Well, 14.
And they win it.
It peaked at 14. That was the smallest. They came back and won 4 times to win.
Yeah,
double-digit comebacks 4 times.
Yeah, and including some insane comebacks. But I mean, just so good down the stretch. And of course, most NBA basketball games are close enough down the stretch that how you play in that final 8, 5, 3 minutes is important. NHL, where the Carolina Hurricanes have just one Indigenous high draft pick in their lineup. That's Andrei Svechnikov. 2 small centers, TOO small centers or TWO small centers. It worked. Sebastian Aho, Logan Stankoven, not a pair of pivots that you think are Stanley Cup playoff style players, right? They're not 6'3", they're not 220, they're not big, burly, push people around, physical forwards. Good enough. Mid-round picks made good across the lineup. Ahu, Nikishin, Jackson, Blake. 2 goaltenders required, right? Because Anderson succumbs to the knee injury. And they finished 16-3 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's the second best all time in the best of 7 Stanley
Cup. It
Cup.
looked early on in this series like Vegas knew how to do this. They knew how to beat the Carolina Hurricanes. But as quickly as that happened, Carolina turns it around and they finish off the series with, I don't say relative ease, but they look like they were in control. They looked like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And, I can't help but think, Matt, this widely held belief that the Carolina Hurricanes, well, we've already seen it. I mean, they've been competitive now for years. They finally win this cup. And we talked about the roster being relatively static. Like, they're not going away. Like, there's been some teams where you can imagine, okay, if this guy gets hurt or blah, 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 that the team stumbles. Like, I think they're Panther-proof, the Carolina Hurricanes. Like,
Well, Florida won 2 in a row, of course.
No, I know, but I'm saying, they lose some guys to injury here this year.
Right.
That's why they fall off. I think you could take 1 or 2 guys out of this lineup here, one of the contributors, and I think they're okay. I think they're still a playoff team.
Boy. Like that would be saying something. And look, the recent trend in the National Hockey League has you win a cup. There's a pretty fair chance that you're going to be in the running for the next few years, right? Florida coming off the back-to-back cups and in the finals 3 straight years in a row. Edmonton made back-to-back finals. Vegas, 3 finals in the last 9 years. Tampa. 3 straight trips to the Cup final, including 2 victories. I mean, even Colorado, I know they only won the 1 Cup, but they've been right there as one of the best teams in the league, regular season at the very least. So, yeah, I would suspect Carolina is going to be right back there next year. We got a super chat from Basketball Phil. Everybody, we say this all the time. You're watching on YouTube. That super chat button always available to you. Hit it, make your donation. Half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. We'll make sure to get it on air. Needs to be said, look at all those wonderful viewing parties throughout the Lower Mainland and the entire province. Are we ready to finally have one when the Canucks return to the playoffs? Phil, you'll want to hear your boy Rob Williams or Roberto the Football Guy a little later in the program. We talk about just that at this new amphitheater at the PNE, the FIFA FanFest, which has been the place to be here through the weekend as crowds have turned out to watch the footy and gather. Good times being had by all. It's closed today and tomorrow, but it's going to be banging, I think, between Wednesday and Sunday in particular because of the weather and because of who's on tap for the World Cup schedule. I think you've got some pretty significant fan bases that are going to be looking to congregate and cheer amongst like-minded people.
Not to mention, the Canada Soccer House in North Vancouver too. I mean, there's
the shipyards.
There's venues here now that certainly lend itself to that. So,
let's shout out. We shouted out Logan Stankoven of Kamloops. Let's do the same with Rod Brindamore. Rod the Bod from Campbell River, British Columbia, celebrates his set. I love that he went tarps off in the post-game dressing room. He celebrates his second Stanley Cup championship as a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, captained the team in 2006 and received the chalice from Gary Bettman upon Carolina's first ever Stanley Cup victory. That team, of course, general managed by one Jim Rutherford, ex of the Vancouver Canucks. And he's been called Rod the Bod forever because of just the incredible dedication he has had to being in the top physical shape that he could possibly.
And as that video showed, he's not slumped on that.
How old is he now?
55.
55 years old, and to look like that. My goodness, Brind'Amour. And, of course, that's why he played so deep into his career. What was his final season playing? You have it in front of you?
09-10.
Oh, my goodness.
1,484 games.
40 years old. And there is a terrific story about Brind'Amour that goes back to his minor hockey days. If I'm not mistaken, he played for the famous Notre Dame Hounds program in Saskatchewan. So this would have been as a teenage player.
87, 88.
Right. I forget who told us the story. In fact, it might have been his son, Skyler, who I think we had on the show years and years ago in the BCHL. But somebody told us the story that Notre Dame comes back from a bad road loss, and, it's Saskatchewan in the middle of winter. So the bus pulls in at 2 or 3 in the morning, whatever time the bus pulls in. The players are exhausted. They got school the next day. They, head off to their dorm rooms and their beds. All of a sudden, people start getting woken up because there's noise coming from the weight room. And finally, somebody can't sleep, and they go down to investigate. Brind'Amour had somehow gotten himself a key to the weight room and was so displeased with his performance or the loss or what have you that he's in there throwing iron around, grunting, screaming at 3, 4 in the morning as a whatever age he would be, 15-year-old, waking up the whole school.
So this success has brought up a Hall of Fame debate again for Rod Brind'Amour, who is not in the Hall of Fame. His points per game doesn't scream Hall of Fame at 1,184 points. I'll say this. I had to be reminded.
That's a pretty good total.
Yeah, it's a good total. And he actually peaked at a pretty elite level. He had a 97-point season.
Yeah, he did.
4 times he crested 80. Here's the interesting fact. He went a decade between 80-point seasons.
Yeah.
He had an 87-point season with the Flyers, moves to Carolina, and it took 5 years there, 6 years there. 06, 07, he gets to 82 points in 78 games again with the Carolina Hurricanes. I think that would be a tough record to break. 10 years between 80-point seasons. But he kept
There's
himself.
hope for Elias.
Yeah, exactly. But, hey, if you make Elias look like that, I bet you he can do it.
I typically have drawn a pretty firm line with the Hall of Fame, even while the selection committee hasn't. I think it should be the Hall of Excellence, not the Hall of Very Good. I think you can make a case that Rod Brind'Amour as a player is above very good, maybe not quite excellence. But are we talking in the player category, or are we talking just in a builder category or general catch-all? Do you need to make your own category for Rod Brind'Amour?
There should be a catch-all. Honestly, like at this
just
point,
body of work as player or coach.
Right. Like even if he's not the second coming of Scotty Bowman, a very good coach. He's now got a ring.
Extraordinary coach.
He's made it to the conference final as a coach now 3 times. 4 times. 3 additional times. I mean,
honestly, Blake,
totality, maybe they're right. Maybe he should be.
Outside of the 2 Florida teams, is there anybody who wouldn't trade their coach for Rod Brind'Amour? If you're happy with John Cooper, the lawyer from Prince George, or Paul Maurice down in South Florida, I get it. They've won multiple Stanley Cups for you. But if you're any other franchise, Rod Brind'Amour is an upgrade.
He's probably better than your guy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then there's the owner, Tom Dundon. And, of course, was known as a maverick from the second he got into the National Hockey League. He bought a distressed franchise from Peter Karmanos who was not only running out of money, but was warring with his children. They were suing him. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Blake. We were sitting there wondering, okay, is the NHL going to make it in Raleigh? Are they going to be the next Phoenix? And then in came Tom Dundon, Texas guy with all his money, decided, no, we're going to do things a little bit differently. As he will tell you, he's not cheap, but you have to make the case for value for him to greenlight the expenditure. Brindamore's on one of the lowest coaching salaries out there. The front office matriculates from a Don Waddell run operation to an Eric Tulsky run operation. This is a forward progressive front office. They have a bunch of data analysts working there. They have their model. And it's a cost-effective model on top of that. It's not like it's the Leafs or the one-time Canucks program where, hey, we can spend above and beyond in other areas, if not the salary cap. Let's do it and see if that brings competitive advantages. No, this ain't it.
It's as Moneyball a story as the NHL's probably had, right?
Yep. Here's Eric Tulsky, who may be the first GM who was on Twitter to a large extent. Was Bill Zito ever on Twitter when he was an agent? But Mike, if we can show the tweet here from Eric Tulsky in 2014, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have that, Mike? With the Frank Serva? Yeah. So there's the Eric Tulsky tweet from 2014, and he's got a chemistry background from Harvard and Cal Berkeley. And in July 2014, he said, I can understand why the default would be to trust that NHL teams know more about every aspect of the game than random bloggers. And Saravelli quote tweets that and says, random blogger, etched in Stanley Cup lore.
And he has company
for a long time.
There's a lot of bloggers on the staff.
Including Reese Jessup, former Canucks Army blogger. I can remember, and there's Reese, he's the guy on the right side of the photo there. There's Garrett Holt pointing him out. I can remember reading Canucks Army back in the day, and every time I read an article, well, not every time, but oftentimes I would read an article and go, wow, that was a really smart piece. And then I'd scroll up to the byline, and it was Reese Jessup. And I want to say it was J.D. Burke at the time who was, and J.D.'s in the photo on the left. I want to say it was J.D. Burke at the time who was the editor-in-chief of Canucks Army. I can remember reaching out to J.D. and going, I really like this Jessup guy and what he's writing about. Do you think, he'd be a good guest for us? And he goes, well, man, he's a little bit quieter, but yeah, you should have him on the show. And we had Reese on the show. He's excellent. I sent him a note today. Hey, congratulations to Reese Jessup. And look, if you love hockey, you're looking for a career in hockey, there are worse places, entry points, than getting involved on the media side, writing about it, podcasting about it, blogging about it. Eventually, a guy like Eric Tulsky
might notice
and go, you know what? That's really smart stuff. Maybe this guy's got something to offer. The bottom line, the data revolution has broken through here. If Florida wasn't evidence enough, and it's a franchise run by former player agent Bill Zito, but also had a lot of the same progressive data, analytically driven minds in the front office. Sonny Mehta, of course, is now matriculated to the GM of the New Jersey Devils. If you weren't convinced by Florida, Carolina's further proved it. And I so hear all those Canucks fans who are asking for a nerd GM or are asking for a still more nerds in the front office, as they put it. I mean, I like Ryan Johnson a lot. I think he's a smart guy of character and integrity. And I do think he's the right guy at the right moment in terms of mending the Vancouver Canucks and much of what ails them, if not everything that ails them. But God almighty, give me more minds like Tulsky and people from the Tulsky tree in the front office.
8 straight trips to the playoffs. There's only been one and done in those 8 years. The second year for Rod Brindamore, they lost in the first round. That is the only one and done. They have made it to the second round in 7 of the 8 years.
Yep.
And that was the low.
How many conference finals?
4 in total.
Well, that's pretty good too, huh?
And every year they're at a minimum a 600 winning percentage, except for that one year where they lost in the first round. They were 596. But at minimum, they've been a 600 winning percentage. If you throw out, I mean, they've had 3 in and around 600. I mean, it's often flirting with 700 winning percentage.
I can remember a couple of years ago, we were marching towards the trade deadline, and we had Saravelli on, and I asked Frank, what's the likelihood of Carolina taking the big swing? And they did ultimately take the big swing that year in Jake Gensel, although they paid a much smaller price than I think a lot of people, because remember, the Canucks were involved in Gensel.
Yep.
They paid a much smaller price than I think people expected for the best rental available that year. And Saravelli told us, based on everything that Tom Dundon has told me in the past, you do not mortgage the future. The notion is if you bang the door enough times, eventually it's going to come off the hinge. And it came off the hinge last night. Here's Jay Fresh. The Carolina model includes making sure you don't mortgage your future, chasing the highest and skill at the deadline. Dealt for Gensel, tried Rantanen, then salvaged it. It's meticulous year-over-year tinkering behind stable management and coaching. Those are my words. Jay Fresh, they didn't fire the coach. They just added enough good skilled players that the play style slowly but surely shifted away from dump and chase pucks on net to a balance of forechecking and possession and rush play. And that's further credit to Rod Brind'Amour. They established a team identity. We're going to dump, we're going to chase, we're going to forecheck, we're going to throw pucks on net from everywhere, believing that if we consistently outshoot the opponents over the long term, we will be ahead. They were the first team, at least in my understanding of it, to take advantage of, okay, let's flip the pucks high and out to the center of the ice. Remember, we used to be a chip it off the boards, rim it around the boards. Oftentimes that would create an icing. Sometimes that would create a delay of game, puck over glass. And they said, okay, well, if the rules don't prioritize that anymore, because remember, you can't change on the icing anymore, the chip it out. And if you happen to get the icing back in the old day, at least you got the shift change, right? You didn't get the tired players. They're like, all right, we'll just flip it up to center ice then and create another race. It's kind of like the forecheck before the forecheck of dumping it in.
And these are the best players on the planet. They should be able to chip the puck out. But
just really smart in terms of the way he evolved. Like Blake, I've had the longstanding discussion on this show that developing a team identity and this is the way we play is only half the job of coaching. The other half is how do you adapt? Like when you've got things in your program that are proving to not work or at least not get you over the championship hump, or you've got opponents that play a certain way that they're going to negate your strengths, what's your next route to victory? What's your third route to victory? What else can you establish as part of your program? And Rod Brind'Amour has done a sensational job of that on top of everything else that he brings to the program in terms of relentless work ethic and detailed hockey and, no carrying the puck over lines.
Well, one of the other little innovations, one of the adaptations that they had was they did realize at one point, okay, we're not getting many good scoring opportunities. We're flooding it with shots, but we aren't. And there was a tweak made, and they upped their quality of chance and quality of shot. Yes, by making that tweak, because teams realize, they just want the puck. We'll let them have the puck on the outside, and they'll just throw everything from the point and elsewhere, and they won't score. But they adapted further beyond that without really relinquishing the puck. Mm-hmm. So again, constantly innovating, constantly looking for the answers.
Really, really good stuff. A Stanley Cup champion that I can get behind. I think a lot of the hockey world can get behind, because the other thing is they're inoffensive too.
Yeah.
Like, was there any villainy out of the Carolina Hurricanes this postseason?
No.
I mean, maybe if you were in Ottawa, Montreal, Philadelphia, or Vegas. If you're a blindly loyal fan of the Knights, Flyers, Senators, or Canadians, maybe you could find some villainry.
But full-throated hate? I don't know.
No, exactly.
I don't know.
I think it's just a Stanley Cup champion that the hockey world is standing up and applauding and said, you know what? Job well done and richly deserved.
And in this,
after so many years of being a good team, we talk about it all the time. Unless you're a defending Cup champion or a team that's been in the finals or been in the conference finals time and time again, you make the Final Four of the NHL, that's a successful season. Carolina ultimately got to the point where it was no longer a successful season getting to the Final Four. And sure enough, they not only get over the top and get to the final, but they lift the trophy as well.
and how often when a team is dominant do they escape lily white? Not often. No. People find problems with them and manufacture that hate. But this team goes 16-3, and really no one's got a bad word to say about them. It doesn't happen often.
Nope. And lastly, a former Vancouver Canuck won a Stanley Cup last night. And you may not remember the 18 games that Jalen Chatfield played with the Vancouver Canucks in 2020-21. But as J-Pat notes, he won a Memorial Cup with the Windsor Spitfires. He won an American League championship, a Calder Cup, and now Jalen Chatfield has won himself a Stanley Cup, a no pomp, no circumstance, right shot defenseman, an undrafted major junior free agent. You don't see a lot of undrafted major junior free agents in the NHL, period, let alone guys who turn themselves into NHL regulars. And that is exactly what Jalen Chatfield has done over the last 4 seasons with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's missed just 27 regular season games over those 4 seasons. 22 points is the career high, 8 goals is the career high, but 54 Stanley Cup playoff games in the last 4 years for Chatfield. And he breaks through winning a cup. He won an AHL championship with the Chicago Wolves the year after he signed with Carolina and yet to establish himself as a full-time NHLer. I mean, Blake, here he looked like at best a, depth right shot defenseman. Okay, if you had injuries, maybe he was your 7 or your 8 organizational defenseman. He's been much more than that.
I do remember when he left, though, like people kept on expecting an offer to come through and a signing to happen, and it ultimately didn't. And I remember people saying at the time, not that they, and he's still, let's face it, he's still a third pair defenseman for the most part. But I remember people saying, it's a nice player. Like, you should have kept him in the fold. It would have been all for naught, most likely. Again, there's only so much change he can affect as a third-pairing defenseman, and this has not been a window for the Canucks to win the Stanley Cup by any stretch of the imagination. But somebody made a mistake by letting that player slip through the fingers because he was never expensive. It was never a cost issue for retaining Jalen Chatfield.
I believe he was a Group 6 free agent, so like one of those guys who was old enough that he got to free agents.
But pretty unflappable. Yeah. I remember hearing...
Like, you call him a third-pair guy. He played 20 minutes a night this year for the Carolina Hurricanes. He played 22 and a half in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, goodness gracious.
He's safe, right?
Jalen, he's very safe. Mm-hmm.
People, they had eminent use for him as a guy to munch minutes. So.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't even get to major junior early, Blake.
No.
Like... He only became a regular major junior at 18.
You love the late blooming stories because it does give your team, whoever your team is, hope that you might stumble upon one.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might give somebody a second chance. We were talking about viewing parties. Folks, don't forget, there's a built-in one in Port Moody and Penticton with the big yellow dog on the front.
Mm-hmm.
Go check it out. Yellow Dog Brewing is your home base for every match this summer. Port Moody, Penticton, they both got big screens. The games are on. Cold beer flowing.
Neighborhood as well in Penticton.
The fans are there. Grab your crew, claim your seat, catch all the action at Yellow Dog and Neighborhood Brewing.
And now comes the NHL offseason, officially underway on June 15th, not June 25th, thankfully. That was the other thing. Nice job scheduling this year, National Hockey League, in the playoffs.
Well, they got some help with some quick rounds, too.
We started the second round before the first round ended, which we had been hesitant to do in the past. Two teams still got huge breaks, Carolina a couple times, and Vegas after their sweep of the Western Final. But we got this thing done and dusted in 6 games on June 15th.
I'm convinced the World Cup had a lot to do with that. They were just fine getting out of the way.
Now, next year, of course, we are starting the season earlier, 84-game schedule. But I love the fact that we've got a near 2-week run-up here to the draft as opposed to,
2 days off.
Scouts are going to have to miss the Stanley Cup parade because they've got to be there at the draft. Do you remember that a couple of years? How insane that is.
Ridiculous.
You work all your life to have that day, have that moment. But your scouts were engaged with the draft. So good on you, NHL schedule maker, for getting this thing completed. Canucks still have Manny Malhotra's coaching staff to round out, but trade season is upon us. So is signing season. If not other teams' UFAs, that's on July 1st. Then your Indigenous UFAs. I saw a piece on Canucks Army. You bringing Curtis Douglas back? What about Teddy Bluger? It's been very quiet on the Teddy Bluger front. Now, I would say Bluger should be a guy you re-sign and then flip at the deadline, but of course they didn't flip him at the last deadline, and he may get more than a 1-year deal. And of course, Teddy Bluger had a darn good season. Who's playing fourth-line center for the Vancouver Canucks? Who's playing third-line center for the Vancouver Canucks with those guys set to hit free agents?
I've got no problem with Teddy Bluger, and you're not watching the cap if you're the Canucks, so you're not worried necessarily about even the cap hit over. And I think you're right; he has to be a 2-year deal, but he does.
Well, you want the cap hit in a range though that he's still going to be
movable,
attractive.
I guess, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I am worried about providing time for the people that will be a part of the winning future for the Vancouver Canucks. And hey, you do want leaders in there, and he's a great leader, I think, and speaks truth and all that. So, I think there's a path for me to want him back.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you not that it's the same circumstances as last year, but you don't want to be run out of center icemen.
No.
I mean, Paterson, Rossi. Can you trust Filipino to be healthy? Okay, maybe you can, or at least
he's an option.
At least he will be early in the season, or at least you think so. You hope so. Of course, Max Sasson has been full-time moved to the wing now. So is that so? Does Ratu slot in there? Do you feel like Hedl and Ratu that's enough with Braden Coots, who may or may not make the team, and Safanov, the big Russian?
Do you need to play Coots down the middle immediately, or do you give him a year on the wing to start?
Ty Mueller got another cameo there at the end of last season. Do you feel like he is cover enough there? Does he have to play wing at the NHL level? Anyways, we'll see what the Canucks do at center ice, but it would not surprise me if you see one of Bluger or Curtis Douglas re-signed before July 1st.
Curtis Douglas, why?
Well, he would not be my choice, Blake.
Okay.
But as we talked about when he came in last year, he is quite a spectacle at his height. And if he's fighting, and do you feel like you need to protect the kids? As Jim Benning once gave me a diatribe, Matt, I'm not going to let these kids get their head kicked in. That's why we went out and got Antoine Roussel and Jay Beagle. You'll remember that, July 1st, free agent signing day. Or does he provide ownership in the marketing department, at least something to come see at Rogers Arena on 42 home dates? A big, tall guy who may just fight.
I'm going to guess he's still around deep into free agency. I think that is your last item on the to-do list if you still feel like you need it.
Yeah, and then good story from Coos here in the province on Friday. Coos got a hold of Steve Warrior, former AGM of the Florida Panthers, and you and I both have an ongoing conversation with Steve Warrior, wonderful dude, who was a Panthers AGM back in the day when they interviewed new Canucks assistant general manager Richard Seeley. That was for a coaching position at the American Hockey League team. Warrior telling the province, quote, "We interviewed a lot of guys, Most of them tried to pretend that they were innovative, thinking that's what we wanted to hear. But Sealy was the most interesting and clearly not faking it. And he went on to say, with regards to the progressive outside the box thinkers, if you don't get them when it's too early, you won't get them when it's too late. He went on to say there was pushback against hiring Sealy, that he wasn't ready. He talked about how he was his favorite guy. They hammered the table for him, but the other decision makers in the Panthers front office went a different direction. Sealy wound up with the Los Angeles Kings, and coaching had his, as we talked about last week, had a coaching stint in the ECHL, moved into the American Hockey League as their general manager. And that's a terrific endorsement from Steve Werrier about Sealy and how he was that interesting and that innovative that long ago.
Well,
so
that's a good sign.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great to hear.
And that's why,
in fact, I'm a little ticked off that Steve didn't reach out and mention that to us independently. Why did I have to read it on the province, Steve? I know you listen to the podcast. I know you catch the show.
Hermiston and Sealy both have such sort of low-key profiles that we're
just learning them.
It's tough to be critical just because you haven't heard of them, you know? So,
no. You're not critical, but it's just, you know, so little about them because so little of their professional life has been in the public spotlight. Yeah. I wanted to bring that detail to the table.
I think there are people that are like, who's even heard of this guy? What are the Canucks doing?
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Although I must say, you know, not going with the quote-unquote nerd GM, Evan Gold, when he was right there and you were somewhere down the line talking with him and turning to the ex-player again, I do wonder. Lastly, some news from the Canadian men's national team, now training at UBC, everybody, the home of the Whitecaps, of course. National Training Center has been turned into the Canadian Men's Training Center. There is Alphonso Davies running. He has been cleared for, is it partial training?
He's still in return to play protocol, which is the lowest level of practice, but he's never been doing this. This is the first time we've seen him running with cleats on. He's been in running shoes
with
before
the team.
This.
He's been running on the side with doing his own ball drills under the auspices of a Bayern Munich therapist or recovery medical team member. But Moise Bombito, full training?
Full training.
That's excellent news.
Yeah, and we'll see. They may modify it, even though modified training is sort of the middle ground. But he's listed as full training, so that's positive. I saw Ben Steiner saying that he saw him doing some resistance band work, and he did see him wince in pain once.
Okay. Well, look, those of us who were realists about this on the way in knew we weren't going to see him against Bosnia. Don't believe we should need him against Qatar on Thursday, which means he has 9 more days, a week Wednesday, Canada versus Switzerland here at BC.
And something
in the third and final group stage match of the tournament.
When you think about Bombito, also think about this. 2 yellow cards on the back line, Johnston and Defougerol. If either one of those players gets a yellow against Qatar, not available versus Switzerland.
Yes.
So
yes,
have that in the back of your brain.
And as Vanni Sartini told us on Friday, head soccer coaches don't want to mess around with their center back combo. If you're playing 4 at the back line and you really like and trust the 2 guys playing center back, and I thought Defougerol had a pretty strong game against Bosnia on Friday, though that's the position where you're not looking to mess around and make any changes. You would like your 2 center backs to just go 90-plus minutes every single match because that's the easiest way you can lose the game outside of the keeper falling apart, right?
Yeah.
That's the position where you are most at peril if they done screw it up. And, you know, we talked about this for many, many years on this show. Coach's job is not to win the game. It is to minimize ways to lose the game. And thus, a solid, stable, defensively oriented pair at center back, I'm sure, is something that Jesse Marsh wants and needs if Canada is going to advance and do what it hopes to do at this tournament.
Marsh not speaking till Wednesday, by the way. So we're not going to get any definitive answers on availabilities and stuff until Wednesday.
Coach doesn't do everyday media at the World Cup.
He's slowing that down a little bit. He
Is
went
it
down
because of some of the comments he made last week that got so much fire in the United States?
I think it's just keeping the availability of these players under wraps. He went down.
Is it anything like let's not pull a John Herdman and piss off the next opponent with stupid comments?
Well, the chances of him facing the U.S. is very small.
Right.
So
right.
He's just pissing off somebody for fun, I think.
If you missed it last week, Jesse Marsh allowed that as an assistant coach with the U.S. men's national team many, many moons ago. But they did have a very good World Cup, if I'm not mistaken, when it was Bob Bradley was the head coach at the time, under Bradley and under Marsh. Marsh talked about how he tried his utmost to get the American players to really sing and belt out the Star-Spangled Banner in advance of these games. I mean, you see some of these sides where every single player is full-throated, right? And that he wasn't able to convince a lot of the U.S. players to sing the anthem, including star at the time, Clint Dempsey, who took some umbrage with it.
He said, why are you thinking about us right now?
Right,
Just focus on your team.
I mean, there was a lot of U.S. commentators who were quite sore, quite bruised with that Jesse Marsh comment. I'm sure it didn't land well with Alexei Lalas.
Oh, Lawless has got his own issues. He's on a panel right now with Zlatan and Thierry Henry, who both seem to have no time for Alexei Lalas.
Both of them seem to say more interesting things than Alexei Lalas,
Yes.
and I wonder if Mr. Lalas is worried that Fox may have stumbled onto their A panel going forward, that his day in the spotlight of U.S. soccer may be setting. All right, let's get to today's menu, brought to you by our friends at Greta. A fantastic spot to pregame or postgame. You are mere steps from the stadium, particularly the way they are routing you into BC Place for some of these soccer matches. And if you're looking for a venue for your next private party, family reunion, team party, office outing, check out Greta, a private riser at the back with its own bar. So you got service right there, neat and tidy, quick. Delicious menu of street food, unpretentious street food, and of course the arcade that encircles the bar with a game for everyone. You'll have a blast. For more details to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Jeff Paterson's going to join us here. We'll talk Vancouver Canucks with him, including the Carolina lessons, including Jalen Chatfield, also on to Jake DeBrusk and Thatcher Demko in the offseason business of your Vancouver Canucks. Rob Williams will join us from the Daily Hive. He took in Saturday's first World Cup match at BC Place between Australia and Turkey, and my goodness, the sights and sounds of downtown Vancouver. We'll talk to Rob about all that, who's also been out at the PNE for the FIFA Fan Fest and the amphitheater, which has been a major addition to our entertainment platform here in the city. Huh? People love it. It just looks gorgeous. I'll say that.
Especially at night when the lights are on. So amazing.
Later in the program, we'll talk BC Lions, their season opener, and what went wrong. We will talk more about the World Cup in Vancouver. We'll also talk the baseball and the RBC Canadian Open that Blake completely missed this year. Really good story there. Really good winner there. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. Hey, I was on Australia at plus 400, brother. So I'm going to go first. 5 of the 13 matches at the World Cup ended in draws. You might see more as the tournament picks up, as safe could very well be a ticket into the knockout round because some third-place teams are getting in, right? Mm-hmm. When Paul Dolan was on with us last week and he talked about Canada and Bosnia and we could see a low-event tie there, I just went, oh my goodness, please don't tell me you're going to have all these teams come here and try and draw their way into the knockout phase in front of a North American audience that doesn't deal with draws very much. And of course, doesn't deal with nil-nil draws, no scoring draws in virtually any sport outside the rarest of hockey games. Well, I'm looking at that Iran-New Zealand match later tonight. It is the most evenly paired match of the day. Iran is a favorite in the game, but a tie pays plus 250. So give me a tie between Iran and the Kiwis.
I'm going to look at the U.S. Open coming up at Shinnecock later on in the week.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Because you mentioned the Canadian Open. Just one bad round for Nick Taylor. And he figured it out on Sunday. Could he figure it out this week? Plus 21,000 on Nick Taylor to win the U.S. Open.
Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid, ready to move on to the next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. I presume this applies for October as well. Hockey moves fast, and now a 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365. Download the app, see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. J-Pat, next. Here's some Bryce from the historic Wall Center.
This Men's Health Week, this week, and coming up on Father's Day, take one simple step for your health. Because caring for yourself today and going forward means more time, more memories, more milestones. Healthy fathers help build healthier families. Get more time with the ones that matter most. Learn more at Movember.com. Yeah, we're talking Movember
in the summer.
Yeah. Get used to it.
An early happy Father's Day to everyone, including this next guy, our Canucks reporter, the host of RinkWide Vancouver, Jeff Paterson, who joins us here. Jeff, how goes?
Yeah, good. Hockey season is finally over, and what do we get? 2 weeks and 2 days until it all kind of ramps up again. Actually, shorter than that, I guess, with the draft.
A week from Friday.
I was thinking ahead to July 1st. So good on the Carolina Hurricanes. Congratulations to them. But now we can once again focus all of our energy and attention on the rebuilding Vancouver Canucks.
And I have been hesitant to go down this road because the Canucks are just so far away from contention that lessons learned, a topic we often do during the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup final, seems a little more distant this year than it has in different years, because let's face it, just talent accumulation, I think, is the immediate need and lesson. But Jeff, you're always a sharp eye on all of this, and let's face it, this is a much different constructed Carolina Hurricanes than a lot of Stanley Cup champions. Is there anything that you've picked up during the playoffs and the final that you think could be trendy going forward for the National Hockey League in terms of teams building clubs? Because let's face it, the Canucks are pretty close to a blank slate right now in terms of the construction of a contender.
Yeah, there is a lot of ground to cover for the Vancouver Canucks before they're back in that kind of conversation. But I will say this, that as I watched the Carolina Hurricanes demolish 4 opponents in the playoffs, I actually thought that maybe there was some good news in all of this for the Vancouver Canucks. And that is that the Carolina Hurricanes achieved greatness this year and finally got it done without absolute game-breaking, top of the lineup talent. And we know that the Vancouver Canucks lack that. And the Carolina Hurricanes just assembled the best team. And they truly were a team. But, if you sit here and be like, who are the best players on the Carolina Hurricanes? Most people would say Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, Seth Jarvis. And they all had their moments in the playoffs. But really, you look at their boxcar numbers, the takeaway totals on their stats page, they don't jump off the page at you. That second line was incredible. And I was so happy to see Logan Stankoven get his hands on the Stanley Cup. And there's certainly a lesson there as well. I think what I like about the Hurricanes is, so many shrewd, calculated moves. We understand the guys at the top that are doing the operating here. But they also know when to take their swings. And so, they lock up both Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake. Jackson Blake was a 4th-round draft pick, and this guy was an absolute monster for them, and he isn't even out of his entry-level contract yet. Him and Stankoven's extensions kick in next year, and they're tied up long-term. It's funny, I had the chance, and I think I've told you guys this, I had the chance last year to go back to the Kamloops Blazers alumni golf tournament. Just happened to be in a foursome with Logan Stankoven. I'd never met him before, but had a great day on the golf course. At that point, he was weeks removed from signing this $48 million extension as a 22-year-old. He had just gone out and bought a big boat that he was going to use up and down the shoe swap.
That's what you do.
I think, right, and I think in those moments, he thought he had it all. And here we are, not even a year later, and he's a Stanley Cup champion. He's going to get his day with the cup, probably on his boat in the shoe swap. So I was happy for him. But again, getting Jackson Blake in the 4th round speaks to talent identification, the scouting systems, and then placing these big bets on young guys at that point in time. Like, those are big swings for the Carolina Hurricanes, but they look like they've knocked it out of the park with both of those guys, identifying Keandre Miller, who was available. They went out, they got him, they paid a price to get him, but he came into his own. Man, did he log some big, ferocious minutes in the playoffs. And again, how many times have we had this conversation, guys, about what are the ingredients of every Stanley Cup winner? And it almost always comes back to, well, you need a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman. Jacob Slavin might be one of the best defensive defensemen in the National Hockey League, but he's never going to be a Norris winner just because of the nature of the way he plays. And this isn't to reduce him in any way, but I think it shows that you can get the job done without having one of those guys that's either in the running for the Norris or right there on the fringes of it. And so that's where I come back. They just built the best team, like across the board, no weaknesses, the way they lined them up, the way the guys stepped up, accepted their roles, obviously terrific coaching, and through it all, they went 8-1 on the road. I was just looking at that this morning. 8-1 on the, like, we talk about hellacious fan atmospheres on the road. It's intimidating wherever you go at playoff time. The home team gets the matchups. That's supposed to mean something. They went 8-1 and they outscored their opponents 32-16 in the process. Like, it's just all business across the board, and they are the ones with their hands on the trophy now.
You said they didn't take any big swings. They rarely, if ever, have sold or bought, a player for the short-term gain. Everything is done with a long-term goal in mind. The one time they came close to doing it was with Rantanen, but they quickly flipped that when they realized they couldn't get long-term out of him, and they went to a long-term model again with a young player. They have such a high floor, Jeff.
That's it. They tried with Gensel. They tried with Gensel. It didn't work out. They ran in, but they fixed that with Stankoven. But
so few mistakes. So few mistakes. And we've talked about this before. They just want to win every year, and not by purchase. I mean, they couldn't be further away from the Vegas Golden Knights model, right?
That is true. I mean, it really was a stunning contrast of just operational styles for these two teams, and yet through it all, there were some similarities as well, in as much as, and this can be applied to the Vancouver Canucks, look at the two goaltenders in the Stanley Cup final at the end, at least. Brandon Bussey claimed off waivers. Carter Hart, and obviously there's a backstory there, but was available as an unrestricted free agent. And here you are, the Vancouver Canucks, with two aging goaltenders with term and trade protection and significant dollars invested. That's something that the Canucks obviously are going to have to look at and see if they can sort of unravel that part of their plan here moving forward. So, I'll admit, I was one of those guys that from afar, okay, a good Carolina team doing some things differently. They're good, but can they ever get great? And I think in past years, they ran into teams that had difference makers that stepped up in moments, and it looked like they were lacking come playoff time. But they don't change their course. They just keep adding pieces here and pieces there, and ultimately they got it done. So hats off to them. I think, almost universally applauded, not because of sort of the unique nature of the way that they build this team, but they're a pretty likable group. I mean, how can you not love the Jordan Staal story, right? And they had a lot of other pieces there that I did. Seth Jarvis and his buddies that that story will get old at some point. I don't think we're there quite yet, but man, talk about loyalty. those guys go wherever he goes, and for the most part, all he does is have success as well. So lots of good stories, and at the end of the day, I think too, like Vegas beat them in game one, and we're up 2-0 in the third period of game two, and from that moment on, like it really was. And Carolina ends up winning 4 of the last 5, put their stamp on this thing, and I'm sure the party is still going on. What a great place to win the Stanley Cup. Washington did it as well. But if you're going to get it done, win the Cup in Vegas. Why not?
Yeah. 2 goaltenders required. Clearly, one of the lessons is middle rounds matter, right? Sebastian Aho, Alexander Nikishin, Jackson Blake, as you mentioned, Jeff. Also, Jeff, 2 relatively small centers. I mean, Ahu is 6 foot, 190 pounds. Logan Stankoven is 5'8" and maybe 170, soaking wet. A man check system all over the ice. I mean, Adam Foote tried it. I guess didn't have the personnel, but that broke through and won as well for Rod Brind'Amour. And they did not they did not get a single game. They did not play their 3rd overall pick from the 2018 draft, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, at all in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He did not get in the lineup. Jeff, it's really quite astonishing when you look at the composition of this roster.
Yeah, and ruthless in the early rounds, right? They were the higher seed. Take advantage. Now, we saw history shows you're rarely going to go 8-0 the way that they did to start the playoffs, but at the end, like it matters. I think back to the Canucks in 2011, and attrition was part, and I don't want to revisit that an awful lot, but that first round against Chicago, they had a chance to take the Blackhawks out early. They had to play extra games. They had a chance on home ice to eliminate Nashville, and they had to go back to Nashville and travel and play. It all adds up. I mean, they put 19 games to win the Stanley Cup, the Carolina Hurricanes. They didn't even have to play 20 games here this spring. And so when opportunity is knocking, take advantage the way that they did. And I do think that it compounds for other teams that have to play more. They stayed remarkably healthy aside from Freddie Anderson, who kind of broke down there towards the end. But the Brandon Bussey story is an incredible one. Was all in on his family, and watching them, they had the Bussey fan cam there for the last couple of games, and from waivers to a Stanley Cup champ. That's a pretty incredible story.
So Matt brings up Kotkaniemi. That's almost half of Elias Pettersson's contract. They won the Stanley Cup, though. Do they need to make any massive changes, like acquire Elias Pettersson, whom they've been interested in before? Does that storyline end now that they are Cup champions and they may not feel so bold here in the offseason?
My first blush answer to that is, they don't need them. They just won the Cup, and yet they are the poster children of unconventional moves. And so maybe they would look at this and double down and see a Kotkaniemi salary that's sitting there not helping them. Could they find creative ways to make something like that happen? I wouldn't rule it out. From the Carolina side of things, again, they showed that they didn't need Elias Pettersson, but I'm sure Eric Tulsky and his crew are going to sit here this summer and try to figure out ways that they can get even better. And when we talk about growth from within with some of those young guys, I think that they're going to. It's incredible to see how much loyalty and faith the players have in Rod Brind'Amour and his system. Like, you can just see how excited they were when finally it was Rod's turn to hoist the Stanley Cup. Like, that wasn't fake. I think there's a genuine love to play for this guy. And, I look at, Jalen Chatfield's a great example. Obviously, the 18 games that he played here in Vancouver didn't happen for him, but he's found himself a home and a system that has allowed him to use the gifts that he's gotten. I pointed out on social last night, a Memorial Cup champ, a Calder Cup champ, and now a Stanley Cup champ. Like, all this guy does is win. It's wild to me because I recall my first ever interaction with Jalen Chatfield was at Young Stars in Penticton. And he might be, and he probably still is, the most laid-back guy I have ever encountered. And I remember talking to him in the locker room, and my first thought was, does this guy, does he have what it takes to thrive in this cutthroat business where guys are going to walk all over you if, you don't push back? Well, clearly he's answered all those questions to get to the National Hockey League, to stay in the National Hockey League, and now he's got the hardware to go along with it. But all these years later, I just think back to this guy that was so relaxed and so laid back ahead of a Young Stars game, and he's just calm and cool and plays big minutes for them, gets the job done. And, Sean Walker's another guy who was always a decent defender, wherever it was, Los Angeles or Colorado. I think he had a stop in Philadelphia too. But talk about a guy that has leveled up in that Carolina system. And so this comes back to this idea that you don't need that one absolute stud, linchpin, 30-minute-a-night defenseman guy. You just build yourself a really solid top four. And even beyond that, Gostisbehere has his role, and he played it to a T. And Kishin's going to get better as he continues to grow. Just really impressed with the way that they've gone about team building, the exercise of team building that has yielded the biggest prize in the game.
Jeff, your memory is so good you may recall, but during those 18 games with the Vancouver Canucks in 20-21, he had a swing of games where he was outstanding. Do you remember this, Blake? And we were sitting there going, oh, maybe the Canucks have filled in one of those gaping holes on right side defense. I can remember we themed a show over him, Blake. We made him the poll question. I think we made him our top story as well. We had Ferraro on talking about his game. And like a week later, he was not very good and basically on his way out of town. And I remember Ray said to us, well, good thing we got all our Jalen Chatfield talk in last week because there's not much to talk about this week. Look, he signed in Carolina as a free agent following that 1 year with the Canucks. It was 3 years, actually, with Utica, the former farm team of the Canucks. Nothing was lost there, right? This isn't one who got away from the Vancouver Canucks and Jalen Chatfield, or can you make that case, given that it took him 1 year, but he's turned into an every game right shot defenseman for a Stanley Cup champion.
Chatfield have changed the last 5 years of the Vancouver Canucks? I think you got to ask yourself that, and the answer is I don't think he changes it at all.
Yeah, I think there's lots of things to pick at the Vancouver Canucks about. Every team has a guy out there that, for whatever reason, didn't quite fit. I do think it maybe speaks a little bit to the impatience that the Canucks showed with some of their young players back then at a point when they should have been far more patient, but that's water under the bridge here. Whatever the case, just happy for him to watch his growth and to become the guy. He's 30 years old now, so it's not like he's a young guy. He's paid his dues, he's worked his way, but he's become a solid National Hockey Leaguer, and so from humble beginnings in the Canucks organization, yeah. But you love those stories. Undrafted, so lots of teams clearly didn't see enough in Jalen Chatfield back in his junior days, and yet all he's done, as I said, is win and sort of overcome the odds to climb the mountain here.
Okay, Cup final is over. We're on to trade season, right before next Friday's draft. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I couldn't sort of believe the way the Jake DeBrusk file was framed last week in terms of the Canucks wanting off that contract. That's one of the better contracts they have. And of the guys, the veterans with trade protection, I think there's 7 of them that you may or may not be able to deal as you go through the rebuild. Like, to me, that's the one that should bring the second biggest return after Philip Hronek, if Philip Hronek's willing to take to waive his trade protection. Your thoughts on a DeBrusk trade here and what you think he could return, and your reaction to Canucks and Ryan Johnson talking about budgeting issues last week.
Right. Well, let me frame this whole answer with, and it kind of comes back to the way we started. We're at a point in time here now where things are going to heat up around the National Hockey League. We know that the league frowns upon teams trying to steal the headlines during the Stanley Cup final. So I will give the Canucks a little bit of grace on the fact that while everybody is waiting to see how this new management group is going to operate, really the entire league was kind of put on hold here over the last couple of weeks with the Stanley Cup final. But now it's go time. And I think these next couple of weeks are going to be really instructive. Before I get to DeBrusk, I just look at, all right, have they finished hiring? Obviously, they haven't with the coaching staffs, both in the National Hockey League and down in Abbotsford, but are they going to continue to round out the front office, or is this it? Is adding an agent that not many people have heard of in player personnel, and adding an assistant GM to oversee Abbotsford. Like, is that it for the Vancouver Canucks? And I think people probably were hoping that there is a little bit more in terms of some of those big brain, outside the box thinkers, especially in the wake of what Carolina has just accomplished in the way that it's assembled its front office. So we'll have to wait and see there. I have to remind myself to be a little bit patient on this as well, that this isn't the finished product, I don't think, but we'll see about that. But the other one is, guys, like, now we start to see, it's been silent on the Teddy Bluger front. And maybe this is a small thing, but look, if they're not going to re-sign Teddy Bluger, then that to me feels like a clue that, okay, they're preparing to create some space for an Atu Ratu, or maybe even a Ty Mueller to take on a bit more of an increased role and get an opportunity here. Curtis Douglas, like, there's this sense that the Canucks want to be tougher and harder to play against. They've got a guy that they picked up on waivers. We know the backstory with Curtis Douglas, but there's been no movement there. He's headed to unrestricted free agency. If they don't re-sign him, then you have to believe that they're going to try to find some toughness that can play. And I think that's the concern with a guy like Curtis Douglas. Is he an everyday player? Can he be an everyday player in the National Hockey League? Or do they have to go and try and find some guys that can actually suit up for you? Deterrence doesn't mean an awful lot if it's sitting in the press box or riding a stationary bike while things are happening on the ice. So, I think we'll start to get some clues about how this group is going to operate as far as its plan and an approach to next season. Now, with DeBrusk, I'm not surprised that there would be interest in Jake DeBrusk around the National Hockey League. 51 goals the last 2 seasons on a bad team. We know the power play prowess. If there's teams out there that struggled and are starting to sort of assess where their issues were, and maybe they want to find a guy that'll score those greasy goals in and around the blue paint, then yeah, $5.5 million. Like, that's an attractive contract. And so I would think that there should be some teams out there that want to get their hands on Jake DeBrusk. From the Canucks standpoint, there's a part of me that thinks, I don't even care who the names are. Like, if they are true about the rebuild, then they just have to find a way off a couple of these veterans. And if Jake DeBrusk is at the top of the list of tradable guys, then I think it makes sense. Even if Jake DeBrusk can provide you some value here in Vancouver, he's made it clear and then sort of walked it back that, where he is in his career, he wants to play for a winner, and I totally get that. I think Jake DeBrusk, with his personality, would fit in any locker room around the National Hockey League. Like, I think he'd be an easy add that way. And I think on a good team, he would probably score you more than the 23 goals that he managed this past season. So I could see teams certainly kicking tires on Jake DeBrusk. And from a Canucks standpoint, I think they have to be open to this, because when they get good again, whenever that is, highly unlikely that Jake DeBrusk is going to be anywhere close to his prime as a key guy that you can count on to score you some goals. So I think the bigger question for me is, all right, yeah, I think Jake DeBrusk is tradable here in the next little while, but who else? And how serious are they about moving off some of these veterans with term? To me, that'll be the true indicator of how invested they are in sort of moving this rebuild in the right direction.
Some hockey business has already started to be conducted. Former Canuck Ethan Bear just signed a new deal elsewhere in the NHL. But the Canucks have, Ryan Johnson said he's super busy, hiring staffs for the NHL and AHL. Do you think they jump on this early, or does it take draft week for them to start to make some noise, whether that is signing their own UFAs that you're talking about, or maybe making a deal to acquire some more draft capital?
Yeah, and as an aside, nice work by Ethan Bear's agent. Like $425 guaranteed in the minors next year, like $850 at the NHL level. I don't know if he's going to play another NHL game, but that's some pretty solid minor league money for Ethan Bear. So good on him. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not expecting a landslide of activity around the National Hockey League today, but I do think now, as we transition away from the Stanley Cup final and the season that was, teams are going to start positioning themselves, make sure that they've got a lot of their own in-house business done. And so whether it's the Canucks and trying to come to decisions on their own unrestricted free agents, the same's happening around the National Hockey League, and maybe some names that we didn't anticipate are going to hit the open market. again, I'm not expecting the Canucks to be big buyers in free agency. I don't think that's the prudent play for where they are. I am curious, though, to see, can they convince some of these unrestricted free agents to take short-term contracts? Can they get guys that are pending UFAs on one-year contracts and try and rehabilitate them and flip them to the deadline? Perfect world, you'd like to see that. The difficult part is pending UFAs work to get term, right? There aren't many out there that are going to look at a last place team and think, 1 year there is what I need at this stage of my career. Now, maybe the Canucks can offer some opportunity to some of these guys, but if we're talking about guys that are going to have value at the trade deadline, I would think a lot of those types of players will be looking elsewhere when July 1st comes around and the free agent market opens. So, I don't think it has to wait until the day of the draft or draft weekend. I'd like to think that we will get a few answers from the Vancouver Canucks front office about personnel and some of the players and how they're going to go about stocking this roster. Because as it stands right now, outside of Evander Kane not coming back, all we know is the guys that they've got under contract are the ones that they had and the ones that right now they're moving forward with, and that didn't work for them last year. So the idea of running it back with pretty much close to the same lineup, I don't know that a lot in the fan base have the appetite to watch that hit the ice on a nightly basis.
Yeah, just lastly, Jeff, you mentioned two of the veterans. Okay, if DeBrusk is the most likely, and I think we can all agree that DeBrusk is the most likely, given his contract, what he said, and all of that. That leaves Pettersson, Besser, Roenick. I mean, I don't know if you want to go down Hedel or Drew O'Connor Boulevard or players like that. Who would be second most likely in your eye, or second most desirable to move them out to show they're true about the rebuild and collect some more draft picks?
For Markstrom.
Demko, I guess, is on that list.
Markstrom's available. He's only got 1 year left. Swap it out.
Look, Thatcher Demko's 2 weeks away from having all of his trade protection kick in here. All indications, I saw the Canucks posting pics of him from Canuck Place over the weekend. So, certainly no indication that they're looking to move off Thatcher Demko, but his trade protection and the new contract kick in on July 1st. So just something to consider there. For all this talk, and I'm on board with a Brendan Gallagher move if they are looking to bring Brendan Gallagher in as a veteran mentor and all that, but then they have to move people out. You can't just bring guys like that in without shipping somebody else out. So to answer your question, Matt, I would look at a Drew O'Connor. As much as I liked Drew O'Connor and thought he had a decent season for the Vancouver Canucks in terms of guys and at the age he's at and the contract, I think he could not just play for, but help lots of teams around the National Hockey League. So if, in fact, their goal here is to find some players on short-term contracts or bring in guys on bad contracts and get paid for it, you got to have somewhere for them to play. So you're going to have to open up some spots on this roster and in this lineup. And also, I think it would serve them well to start to see some change, that this idea of keeping all these guys around. And look, I hear the ones that say, no, keep this group intact for another last place finish. I hear you there. But they're also in the business of trying to sell tickets and get people on board and try to ride this wave of the goodwill that they got with the announcements of the Sedins and Ryan Johnson. But here we sit a month later and still waiting to see some of those signature moves for those guys. So that's why I think, the next couple of weeks, it should, again, I'm not expecting explosive moves from the Vancouver Canucks, although I guess if they could trade a Paterson or a Hronek, that would qualify as a fairly explosive move. But otherwise, I want to see smart, methodical, calculated moves, as an homage to the Carolina Hurricanes to start this thing moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and middle round draft picks are welcome, especially if you can exploit them. I got some good news about Demko on Saturday. My friends at Northlands Golf Course, some of the marshals, whatnot, they saw him out there. So he's.
I got word a few weeks ago he was playing.
He's cleared to swing and to walk around. So good on that. And good on you, Jeff. Thank you for this. We'll catch up later in the week, next week, soon as news on the Vancouver Canucks merits.
All right, guys. Thanks.
So here's some price from the historic Wall Center. We welcome in the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports vertical. Once Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter, now Roberto, the football guy, who took in Sunday's big match, first match at BC Place of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, where Australia,
Rob's other favorite nation, incidentally.
Well, he's half Australian. Yeah. His dad Australian.
Right. Yeah.
Beats Turkey in the first upset of the tournament. But for our purposes, Rob, the talking point is, wow, what a night inside and outside of BC Place around the city.
Yeah, I'm Rob, the World Cup vibes guy right now, I think. The vibes are unbelievable right now in the city. I mean, if you guys haven't, I mean, I know your studio's downtown, so you're seeing it.
We've seen
a lot of it, but like
yeah.
Granville Street is spectacular right now. Mm-hmm. Like it's pedestrianized. They've got tons of activations, I don't know, little photo op type things that are great for tourists and whatnot. But all the bars have like their patios are onto the street. And I just thought before Saturday's match, I was like, if I know Australians like I think I do, I think downtown is going to be pretty cool, a pretty cool site. Apparently, Destination Vancouver said 10,000 Aussies were at the game. They took over an entire yellow wall of Aussie fans on the one end of the stadium and kind of sprinkled throughout. It was unreal. They had like the smoke bombs outside of one of the bars on Granville, just singing, chanting. I think I showed up at like the perfect time. Like they just had finished watching one of the matches and then it just started being like an Australia rally. And then you ended up having like locals, like kind of like gathering around, just like looking at the site they were seeing, just like, and it really just sort of felt like, okay, the World Cup has arrived in our city, right? Like the traveling fan base. And now, I mean, not to be outdone, the Turkish fans, I didn't find where their rally was beforehand. They apparently were at Jonathan Rogers Park. So, south of downtown, but inside the stadium, I think the Aussies might have outnumbered the Turkish fans, but the Turkish fans were definitely louder. Like if Turkey had won, they would have blown the roof off BC Place, which was shut, by the way.
Yes, we know that.
How hot was it in the stadium? I mean, it's a 9 o'clock kickoff, so it's temperature's starting to fall at that point. But how hot was it in the stadium?
I didn't find it too bad. It seemed like there was I could feel like little bits of air conditioning kind of pushing, and maybe I was in the right spot. I'm not sure, right. But it was okay. It was fine. The
other thing, and I see our mutual friend Carm Sumal has been tweeting about this, and I know there's a pilot project or the talks afoot at City Hall. Man, Granville just as a pedestrian street going forward, like in terms of legacy of the World Cup. We may have stumbled on something here, Rob, that changes the complexion of downtown if we take the cars away and just make it a pedestrian. Because the other thing is, and look, I know it's the World Cup, and so they did their utmost to clean it up. Yeah. Granville has never looked better for me. I walked down it last Wednesday. It's been a long time since I've walked down Granville and thought, oh boy, this isn't an eyesore anymore. It's a place I want to go.
They sent out the army of cleaners to they hired a bunch of people. They gave them new equipment. They rolled around and Rob, they could just continue to do that.
Well, that's it.
Like we could just keep the city clean.
But
how about that?
Here's the other thing, though. When Granville is a pedestrian promenade, the cops have to patrol it by foot. And that changes who congregates and their activities on Granville.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the key is having the patios right into the street, right? And that really just gave a completely different vibe. Like if the Aussies were all inside of a bar and not spilled out into the street, like that's a completely different scene. So
it's Europe,
and
right?
You're right?
They do this in Europe.
And you're right, though.
Yeah, that's it.
And you're right. If you want to have like a cool party zone on Granville, you've got to police it. You've got to, that's the kind of that's part of the deal. One funny interaction we had because we were just kind of hanging out around, getting some social media content for @offside on Instagram, if you guys want. Mm-hmm. But we all of a sudden we see a bunch of police officers kind of start walking towards the corner, and we're wondering, okay, are they going to intervene? What are they going to do here? And whatnot. And they just sort of like hung around. And as they're standing and watching, just observing, two New Zealand soccer fans walk by, and they say something to the cops like, "These guys are always like this," or something. Yeah. So it really kind of, I don't know. It really kind of like gave that like World Cup spirit, is I guess maybe the best way to say it, where it felt like it was really alive and well in the city.
And Rob, that I would like to think is also a legacy from the 2010 Olympics, where the cops walked around killing visitors with kindness, basically working as city ambassadors as much as security forces. So did the other agencies involved in security, and it worked like a charm, right? Like if you go up and you're not ham-handed with what you're asking these folks to do, then suddenly you're all on the same team. And you're right, it creates an even better vibe of community. And look, there's one thing about that this tournament does, and we're seeing this in the United States as well, and some people are surprised at it because of where the United States has isolated itself these days under this president. This is the world coming together. You can see this on the streets of World Cup host cities, much like we saw it 16 years ago.
Mentioned off the top, Rob, but the stadium has never looked so good. And watching the matches from elsewhere in North America in NFL stadiums with the high 12-foot walls around, like that's not what the world knows soccer pitches to look like. Because of the elevated floor at BC Place, like it looked like a soccer stadium. BC Place looked like a soccer stadium, and the pitch held up. The pitch was wonderful.
Yep.
Like
52,500 in the joint. So that's a hell of a crowd.
I mean, I was, there's not many moments I'm proud of BC Place, but I was proud of BC Place. It looked great.
Yeah, we had Hart Johal was at the game with us as well. She was asking some of the Australians post-match about the pitch, and it seemed like everyone was happy with the way it held up. So, I mean, that's part of it. I also think that like what you're saying about like how it looked on TV, that's also part of the appeal of natural grass. It's not just how it affects the gameplay. It's how it affects the visual element, and that matters, right? It's all part of the product. How it looks and feels and sounds matters to the overall viewing experience. And yeah, I tend to agree. Like it was cool, and just like it was I guess just like a real soccer, like a real soccer atmosphere in the sense that, and from the Turkish fans especially, right? The drumming, the chanting and whatnot throughout the game from like an enormous amount of people. But also just like Australia would get the ball and like the whole crowd's like all the Turkish fans are just whistling, and it's like kind of this deafening, annoying whistle. But like those are the sounds you hear when you watch the World Cup on television, and that sound was most certainly at BC Place on Saturday. Yeah,
you talk about the look, boy. I noticed tons of shadowing at the Toronto Stadium on Friday.
Yes.
And I just wish they wouldn't lie to us about why the roof. They just don't want to have to go through the business of opening and closing the roof and making those sorts of decisions and going through those timelines. They've told us shadowing. They told us grass. It just looks like they've taken the path of most convenience here. And for a 9 o'clock start, I'm not sure how much shadowing you were going to have. And again, you said the temperature wasn't too bad. They've got other games starting at 3 p.m. Thursday, Canada, Qatar. And then how about high noon for Canada, Switzerland? I just sure hope it doesn't turn into a sweltering sauna in there.
Right now,
and
the
leave
forecast,
a bad taste in people's mouth.
Right now, the forecast is lenient. It's all low to mid-20s for the next 2 weeks here in Vancouver. So if it stays like that, I think we avoid the sweat pit. Yeah. But if the forecast changes,
I do wonder. Yeah, I do wonder about it in terms of, now they did say that they would open the roof on like when they're not playing.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like you get those afternoon games, have the roof open all night, maybe get a bit of air in there. Maybe I don't know. The one element though that could prove to be an advantage for Canada is closing that roof makes BC Place just a little bit louder. Maybe that gives them just an extra home field advantage, perhaps.
The Wally Buono rule.
I'd love to see.
Yes.
The game where it definitely should have been open was 9 p.m. where there's not going to be any shadows.
Right.
On a beautiful summer, or not even summer yet, but a beautiful Vancouver evening. Felt like summer at least.
Yeah. Well, and you say advantage with it a little bit louder. I'm going to guess the Qataris are more accustomed to a sweatbox match than the Canadians at 3 p.m. on Thursday, but we shall see. The other element of the story, we talked about Granville, we talked about the stadium, Rob, but the watch parties that are going on, whether it's the shipyards over in North Van, I saw you were tweeting about the one at Jackpool Plaza near the TSN set. And then, of course, there's the one at the PNE, which apparently a huge success. I got rave reviews from this weekend at the PNE. Important to note, the PNE is not on every day, though, right? They're not going today or tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, check the schedule for like specifics, but generally Mondays and Tuesdays, I think until you get to the knockout rounds or not, they don't have the FanFest on. So it's on for 28 days, but during the however many weeks the World Cup goes on for. So there are some days where they don't have any programming, but yeah, I've been heavy onto the FanFest beat, you guys. It has been spectacular. And I was ready to be underwhelmed about this. I wrote the story about how the ticket sales were terrible. The ticket sales still are not great for the non-marquee days. Like when you look around the seats, there's a lot of empty seats. It doesn't matter though. Like the front section, it holds so many people. Like you've got thousands of people in the standing area at the front.
2,500 people. That's a lot of people.
Like think back to the sad watch party that the city of Vancouver put on for the Canucks when they're in the playoffs 2 years ago, where they are at that park on the west side, and it looked just terrible, small screen, like people on sitting on blankets in a park, like totally spaced out. Like this is not that at all. Like this is just a really good time. So like the first day, I was really interested to see how it would be. It was Mexico playing South Africa in that first game, and I know we've got like a decent amount of people have moved here from Mexico. I didn't know there were that many. Like there were a lot of Mexico fans there, and they were fully into it. These were not bandwagon. This is not a bandwagon World Cup crowd. Like this was like a lot of people like completely into it.
Was the screen big enough? That's the one I saw the photo. I thought they could have got a bigger screen. No.
So there are. I still stand by kind of my concerns from the early going. I think they miss, like the pricing makes no sense. Like to sit in the last row of seats is like, for most days, I think it's like $115 or something like that. Which is, I mean, I wouldn't pay that. Like that seems totally outrageous. So if you're way at the back, the screens are going to be a little small. You'll be able to see what's going on, but it's kind of small. And you can also pay for the lawn seats at the very back. And I know that a lot of people are doing that. I don't know about that plan either. You're so far back. And also there are free screens throughout the stadium or throughout the festival site. You don't have to be in the amphitheater. So I think that's a key thing to remember. So they have the park stage, which looked really cool. They've got a large screen set up there. So there's definitely different options once you get to the PNE. So so that was awesome. I was there for the Canada match. So that was, even more people, of course, because of the, many more of the seats were sold for that one and filled for that one. And then my wife wanted to go to a concert last night. So we went to Cameron Whitcomb and caught just kind of the tail end of Cote d'Ivoire and Ecuador.
Good match.
And I was thinking, well, geez, do we have anybody? I don't know anybody in town from Ecuador or Cote d'Ivoire, and I was just sort of like wondering, okay, what's that going to be like? It was a half decent turnout from like people from Ecuador and Cote d'Ivoire, and then you could see them kind of mixing in with the concert people towards the end of the end of the match, and you kind of pick out like who was there for the concert and who was there for the soccer match. But the concert was packed. Like tons of people came out for it, and it was a really good time. And it's a great venue. I mean, like for a concert, it's like it's the best. I mean, it's probably the best concert venue in the city. Like outdoors, on a nice night. It's a beautiful spot for sure.
Yeah, and closed today and tomorrow, but they're back at it 8 a.m. on Wednesday with the Portuguese. Maybe T-Mart will show up. England, Croatia. You think there might be an English crowd there? Sean Desmond's playing as well on Wednesday. So, boy, I think it's going to be pretty hyped up as well, because of course Thursday Canada plays as well, and then you're into the weekend on Friday with USA, Australia, Scotland, Morocco, and my God, have the Scottish fans won World Cup so far, based on their activities in Boston, and now they're heading down to Miami. Maybe the intense heat and humidity of South Florida.
So many sunburns.
Sunburns. I'm seeing Tartan Army. I'm seeing Lobster Army in South Florida this week. Awesome. So from what I'm hearing, Rob, is this needs to be the Canucks playoff watch party, right? Next time the Canucks are in the playoffs, it's no brainer.
The amphitheater may be torn down by that point. It may not exist.
What? Yeah. What? Yeah. It's temporary.
No, just saying, how many years is it going to last? It is just made of man-made materials.
It flew over your head, Matt.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, remember when they were saying like if the Canucks had beat the Oilers in Game 7, they were planning on having a watch party at the P&E, but they don't have anything ready-made like this. And it would be so easy to hold one there because, and it goes back to everything I've said from the start is about Canucks watch parties, is the key is you have to have security. You have to have a way in, a way out. You got to be checking people for whatever. That's how you ensure that this doesn't get out of hand. And I think that the way that we've been talking about outdoor watch parties is that we're worried about like the free for all from 2011, where you just end up with this mass of people downtown. Well, of course, I think we've learned that could be problematic, particularly in our city. So just have some security, like have a checkpoint where you have to get in and out. And I think with the city, I mean, I guess the trouble is going to be if they've already got dates booked up, but otherwise it's open air. It's got a roof though. So if it rains, everyone's going to be okay. It seems like a natural spot. It's not next to Rogers Arena, like I think a lot of people would like, but it's definitely a cool spot. And I don't think the city is too keen on overloading that area around Rogers Arena with a giant watch party. But imagine you get 10,000 fans out to an outdoor watch party at the P&E. That'd be pretty cool.
Amazing stuff, Rob. Keep on it. Good work on the FIFA World Cup vibes beat and beyond. Roberto, the football guy, here on Sick Harrison Price. Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. Ticket secured, hotel solved. Make the Wall Center your downtown headquarters for every big game, concert, rivalry night. See what's happening at wallcenter.com. We'll just finishing up with Rob Williams there and the match on the weekend. It's the first big upset of the tournament, right, at BC Place, a 2-0 Aussie victory. They beat Turkey as a plus 400 favorite on Bet365. The memes were outstanding. Look at this one for those of you on visual platforms. Yeah, we have a kangaroo cooking a turkey. Turkey, I should correct myself. Turkey.
It's an upset. I wouldn't call it a big upset.
Oh, plus 400. I mean, it's 4-1 to win the game.
I'm surprised that it was that much of a line.
So was I. That's why we took him on the Bet365 bet of the day.
Australia's ranked above Turkey in the FIFA rankings. I mean, it played out that Turkey had the control of the ball and had the better chances. So, but Great execution.
And, of course, you'll hear some grumbling over in Europe about the start times to some of these matches. And, I mean, I get it. 8-9 hours ahead in some cases of the West Coast games. It's difficult. But didn't seem to affect the good folks in Melbourne, Australia. Here's Melbourne going off. You look at the time there, that's midday, just after 2 o'clock when they get the final whistle and the victory. That's a watch party for you. Holy cow. BC Place full, 52,500. Couldn't find an empty seat. Field, as you mentioned, raised up, so an even cleaner sight line from the stands.
Matt, can't help it. We just watched the conclusion of the incredible, that's the biggest upset, actually, what we just saw. Cabo Verde drawing Spain.
It's not an upset, it's a draw.
Took points away from the second-ranked team in the world. That's huge. But you saw exactly what I was talking about. The walls of Mercedes Stadium, there's on one end, it was 30 feet. Like you are 30 feet up as a front row. Like it looks terrible. And BC plays it looked like a proper soccer pitch.
Yeah, there it is again.
Looks great.
Pre-match was crazy too, as Rob noted, downtown. I mean, the Aussies just took over the streets, yellow and green everywhere. Chance of Aussie. In fact, Mike, we got the video. Let's play the audio here alongside of some of these Aussie fans making their march to the match. I've heard mixed reviews.
Just a sea of people.
Yeah.
So good.
I've heard mixed reviews on that single entrance on the east side of BC Place Stadium. Somebody said they loved it because it creates this sort of funnel and atmosphere before you actually get into the stadium.
Which I hear, yeah.
Another person told me it's
a long haul.
It's a long haul. It's a big crowd getting in through what is not the entirety of the people flow that is available to you typically at BC Place Stadium, with people entering from gates on all four sides.
Can you imagine being living in one of those, 4 towers right there at City Gate? Like,
absolutely. I mean,
it'd be just a disaster for the next 6 weeks.
Maybe that's why they closed the roof. They didn't want any looky-loos getting a free peek inside the stadium. And should say, I mentioned with Rob as well, the World Cup is off to an amazing start, not just in terms of the atmosphere that you're seeing around some of these cities, and so far Canada and the U.S., it's been spot on. But the games themselves and the storylines that are playing out, United States with that dominating win. I could not believe how good they looked against Paraguay. Poor Andres Cubas was, holy cow, did they make those Paraguay players look
And that's a pretty decent Paraguayan team. That is by far the best the United States has looked in years.
Yeah. Qatar with a late equalizer against the Swiss. I was trying to watch parts of that game. Oh my God, was that
No, it was not.
low event soccer?
Great.
But the Qataris got the goal they needed at the end. Morocco managed a 1-1 draw with Brazil. Scotland with a victory, and we talked about the Tartan Army and how much fun they're having. Curacao got a goal. Now, they lose 7-1 to Germany, but they got a goal.
It was 1-1 after a half hour.
Coach was in tears after they scored. The smallest nation ever participate in the World Cup. They got a goal, brought the coach to tears. The Japan-Holland game yesterday was outstanding entertainment. It ends 2-2. Sweden scores 5 goals. And the other thing, and look, we note this because this is North America. We have our sporting tastes. They tend to be quite broad. But one of the things that is now at play in just about every sport, we do not deal with draws, right? We have decided in North American sport the ticket-buying public deserves a winner and the loser at the end of however many hours. No 0-0 games until this morning with Spain and Cape Verde, and I think that's important.
That was by design,
well.
too, by Cape Verde. They are maybe the biggest minnow, not in terms of size of the nation, but
aptitude of the team.
And so they showed zero interest in going forward. So that should not be a huge thing to ask for here the rest of the way, that there's some goals, and I think the nil-nils are going to be very few and far between.
I hope so, because it's a lot of money to spend to go and not see anybody score.
Yeah.
I mean, not have that moment of joy, of eruption in the stadium from either one fan base or the other. We'll see how the rest of the day goes, and of course the rest of the week with Canada back at it against Qatar Thursday here at BC Place. Vancouver FC, sticking with soccer, defeats Pacific 2-1 at the LEC Stadium, wins the Salish Sea Derby, as they call it, a second consecutive victory for VFC. Pacific still winless after 9 matches. Vancouver Rise lose 3-1 to first place Ottawa at Swangard. They're into Halifax Thursday. How about the kickoff here, Blake? It is 11 a.m. local time. I don't know if school's out in Halifax on Thursday and they're taking all the kids to the
I would
park.
bet that's it, yeah.
That is a 7 a.m. start for those of us here on the West Coast. And the game is in North America. That's not a European game. That is in North America. BC Lions dropped their 2026 CFL opener 31-27 to the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Regina. The Lions' effort, and there's the new Pacific Frost uniforms,
which apparently are not broadcast friendly.
They are not very broadcast friendly at all. Actually, the numbers do not pop in the least. The Lions' efforts were compromised in this football game early when wide receiver / kick returner Seven McGee went down with an injury, and then slot back Javon Cotoy followed him and left the game. That meant Kieran Poisson, the only backup wide receiver, was forced into every down duty. It also required the Lions to play one of the fullbacks, Xander Horvath, Riley Pickett, Sam Bond, as a fifth receiver in those 5 receiver formations. It meant Stanley Berryhill had to return kicks. He conceded a single on a missed field goal that might have run through the end zone and gone for a no rouge touchback, according to the new rules. That meant the Lions were down 4, not 3. That's a big difference on the final drive, right? You need a touchdown to win, not a field goal to tie. And alas, it was the third-string fullback Bond, Sam Bond, who was in on that drive and dropped a couple of passes. I saw J.C. Abner and others wondering, like, why wouldn't that be Horvath or Pickett, who are a little more accustomed to catching the ball? Bond is a converted linebacker out of the Canadian junior ranks. There was no way, I think, going into the game that he thought he would be on the field and a targeted receiver.
Trying to win the game.
Yeah. Other than that, the offense was productive. Nathan Rourke, 24 of 37 for 330, 59 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He was terrific. But the defense was sieve-like. They gave up 489 yards. The culprit was that secondary, missing veteran leader Gary Peters. The top 3 Saskatchewan wide receivers combined for 387 yards. Halfback Ronald Kent beaten for a couple of TDs. He dropped an interception in the end zone. Lions defense also surrendered a 109-yard touchdown drive when the punter hit the coffin corner, gave them the long field, but they converted. And Trevor Harris, the 40-year-old quarterback, throws the game-winning touchdown to Sam Emilus with 51 seconds left. This after Corey Mace challenges and wins a defensive pass interference non-call earlier in the drive. So, I mean, I think you can say offense, defense, special teams, coaching, the Riders swept all elements of the football game.
And if you're the Lions, you've got to watch this going forward here, because last year, remember, the defense took a while to get their feet underneath them. And if that pattern continues to this season, you have to ask, what's the cause there? Like, why is it taking, like, last year was 6 to 8 weeks before the defense started to look like themselves?
Yeah, that's right.
Can't let it happen again.
And played their best football towards the end.
Yeah.
After they brought the two rookie pass rushers in, Levi Bell, Bradley, and I. And I, of course, didn't want to report this year, wanted a new contract. Well, pass rush wasn't great. Harris gets rid of the ball quickly, though, so we should say that as well. So BC starts 0-1, and they're on a short week here. They travel to Hamilton Friday to play the 1-1 Tiger Cats. Jays lose 2 of 3 to the Yankees. Okamoto hits one to the fifth deck Friday. That is the first ball in the fifth deck in the last 6 years.
Feels like it's been forever, yeah.
It is. Dalton Varsho goes on the IL, but Addison Barger is poised to return. And much bickering with the Yankees, the umpires about box and pitch clock. And, well, it has added to the rivalry, as you can see, with the Cam Schlittler quote about playing in Toronto. Of course, the Jays ended the Yankees series last year in the postseason. Schlittler, the fans don't like us. The fans don't like me. They're easy to rage bait, all that stuff last year in the playoffs or whatever it is. They've got a whole country behind them. So there's a lot. They're passionate about it. You respect them for that, but I don't really like them. They ended our season last year. I hope everyone's got that chip on their shoulder. All well and good, but when you're 10 games back of the Yankees, I'm not sure how hot.
And you may not get the chance in the playoffs at this rate to beat them again.
I will say this: Jose Caballero seems to have it down pat in terms of when he gets into the batter's box, when he acknowledges the pitcher. Of course, all of this now governed by the new pitch clock rules. And he does seem to be able to get pitchers off their timing, or at least out of their comfort zone, with the way he goes about exploiting that pitch clock. Mariners go 4-6 on their 10-game road trip. They lose 2 of 3 in Washington to the Nationals. They now lead the American League West by just 1 game over the Athletics and Texas. But check this out. We've been talking about the AL and what a pillow fight it is. 37-36, 1 game above 500. Look where they'd rank. Look where they would rank in each of the last 4 years with this record. Last year at this time, they would have been 6.5 games out. 2024, they would have been 5.5 out. 2023, they would have been 7.5 out. 2022, they would have been 9 games out of first place. They lead the division, Blake.
Yeah, it's the American League is not covering itself in glory right now. The AL West in particular. Hey, just count your lucky stars, Mariners fans. Count your lucky stars.
Jays too. I mean, they're right in the thick of the wild card because of how terrible this league is, top to bottom. Even Cleveland now is missing Jose Ramirez. He's on the IL, their best player. Vancouver Canadians won the first 3 versus Everett, but couldn't manage a win on the weekend, so they split their 6-game series. The weather turned absolutely fabulous, of course, and the ball was flying out of historic Nat Bailey this weekend. How about 12 home runs over the final 3 games? 7 in Saturday's game alone. I saw our buddy Mike Allen there. I spent a few minutes with him. He goes, I have never seen this many home runs at the Nat ever before. Tucker Tomancy's infielder went deep back-to-back on the weekend, 3 in the series, and those 2 terrific M's prospects we told you about, Felnin Celeste and Johnny Farmello, also hit multiple home runs at the Nats. Saturday, Sunday were sold out, so as we've been telling you, if you want to attend these weekend games at the Nat, or 75-cent hot dog Tuesdays, because that's become a hot ticket as well, especially with the cool giveaways they have on those Tuesdays to begin every 6-game set, you have got to plan ahead and get your tickets early. 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. They're on the road for the next couple of weeks. They wanted to clear it out for World Cup for the most of that.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah.
Journeyman Bud Cauley wins the RBC Canadian Open after a great break on 16 yesterday. Did you see that? He drives it way right. It hits a power cart and stays in play. Earns his first PGA Tour victory and gets off the most starts without a win list. You see it there. He was 239 career starts, had never won a golf tournament. It was the 5th most all-time amongst active players. And also, this is a feel-good winner. Oh, my goodness. Did you hear this guy's story? Plenty of tears with his wife on the 72nd green, and with good reason. June 1st, 2018, he misses the cut at the Memorial Jacks tournament in Columbus, Ohio. He is involved in a serious car accident leaving the grounds. A fractured leg, a collapsed lung, 5 to 6 broken ribs, a concussion. The car went airborne and hit trees. He underwent surgery. He was hospitalized. He returned to competition 4 months later, but the lingering effects were still there. Blake, he missed 3 years on tour. before getting back with a medical exemption. He was not sure he would play competitive golf again, and now he's a PGA Tour winner, entry into the majors, entry into the signature events. Good on you, Bud Cauley. What a story of perseverance.
Wasn't a great Sunday for the Canadians. Sudarshan Yalmaraju was in good position but couldn't muster much on Sunday.
Yeah, he goes for it on 18 when really he's got no choice, and it's in the water, and he's got to drop, and that takes him out of even top 3. But
yeah, but he's the top Canadian nevertheless. And poor Nick Taylor was marvelous on Sunday. He had a Saturday to forget. If Nick Taylor shoots even par on Saturday, he finishes 3rd in the tournament.
Like, he's marvelous on Sunday to get to what? Did he finish even par, 100, something like that?
No, for the tournament, I think he finished 7 under or something.
Oh,
like
okay.
That. No, he was amazing. But he shot 78 on Saturday. If that's even par, or
sorry, he's 6 under. My bad. Yeah.
If he's then so he'd be 14 under par if he was merely even on Sunday. So poor Nick, tough Saturday.
Poll question results from Friday. We asked you, how do you feel about Canada's opening game at the World Cup? Historic result, should have won. Other people said,
historic result.
No, should have won. 85%. Historic result, just 9.
Oh wow.
6% said other. James says historic result, no question, and we could have won, but well, 1 point it is. Dan got unlucky, and if Alfonso was in, I'm quite sure they win. The Swiss late tie helps, though. Yeah, it sure does. An NHL fan bracelet says should have won, but they started so poorly. Excellent second half, but should be very disappointed by the start. Huge win coming up against Qatar. I do not have an error or an omission from Friday's program. So with that, we wish you well and say thank you for tuning in, spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. We're live noon Pacific time, many of those platforms, and it will be noon Pacific time all week this week. And of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.